Yo, what is up? So I just recorded half of this video and then my phone came up with a warning that I've never seen before, which said basically your phone is too hot and can no longer be used because it had been in direct sunlight for too long. And I didn't know that phones could do that. So I will start this video again with the phone out of direct sunlight and see how that works. I've closed the blind entirely, although sunlight is still getting in. I hope you can still see me. In any case, these things happen. It is annoying to say the least, but what can you do? I recently got back from a holiday in Cornwall with my missus and my kids, during which I went for a swim in the ocean and I almost got hypothermia. So I've never shivered that much before in my life, and it was a singular experience to say the least. I also went for a run the other day. When I was at work, I went for a run during my lunch break. There's a park nearby, and I got to a point where on the path, it's kind of a thin path and there's trees on either side. The path is big enough for two people to walk abreast, and there was about 5 or 6 people in front of me as I was running along behind them. They were walking two abreast as I was approaching them, and then 2 of them decided to go around the rest of them as I was coming up to them. So it meant that if I was going to get past them, I had to go into the trees basically. And so I got this serious injury on my arm. It's a pretty significant thing, I think you'll agree. So I almost called out the air ambulance, but you know, I thought I'll probably make it through. So talking of near-death experiences and serious injuries, I recently finished watching this series called Masters of the Air, or as I think it should be called, Masters of the Meh, because I found it incredibly boring, incredibly dull. It's a total snooze fest. I don't know how they made it so dull when the subject matter is actually amazing. It's made by the same people that made Band of Brothers, which is one of my favourite TV series of all time. And it concerns the Bloody 100th, which was a group of flying fortresses, men in flying fortresses, flying missions over occupied France, occupied various places in Europe and Germany during the Second World War, dropping bombs, going on missions, and it's like, you know, Memphis Belle. Have you seen the film Memphis Belle? One of my favourite films. Like, making that into a series seems like a good idea. Like, let's follow these cool people in airplanes going up to like insane altitudes where they have to wear masks because you can't breathe, where they have to wear like bomber jackets because it's freezing up there. It's so dangerous. You're flying in like a giant bus with like 1650 caliber guns pointing in all directions. There's like a ball gunner, 2 like gunners either side, tail gunner. There's all these like gunners everywhere, like shooting in all directions. Enemy fighters coming from all directions. It's like, how can you mess that up? And like the men who fought in these battles are obviously like heroes, and they did like amazingly heroic stuff. They gave their lives for their country, fighting against, you know, ultimate tyranny. And you know, like, just it should have been so cool. It should have been up there with Band of Brothers. Like, I don't know how they messed it up this much. One of the problems is the casting, right? Because as you're watching it, you need to understand who each person is. In Band of Brothers, you understand who each person is from a very early point. They introduce characters really well, and you get to know them progressively as the series goes on. Like, obviously, you're introduced to Winters and Nixon early, and then you gradually like get to understand like Garnier and like Compton and you know, all the other lads in Easy Company. You get to know them. When they get killed, it's very upsetting. And it's like, you know, Joe Toy. There's like so many cool characters, like Skip Mark Pinkala. There's like a million characters in there where you're like following them along, and when they get like injured, when they get killed, it's very upsetting. In Masters of the Air, it's really hard to distinguish between them. They're all wearing moustaches. They're all like dough-faced, like not distinguishable, not easily distinguishable. Like, I guess Barry Keoghan is the most recognizable from my point of view. Like, I think he's one of the best actors alive at the moment. Like, I think he's incredible. And so when I saw him, I was like, okay, perfect. This guy is going to carry it. They're going to follow him for the whole series, and he's going to be one of the main guys. But guess what? He dies super early, and I was like shocked. It's a good shock. It's a Game of Thrones shock to be like, oh, Barry Keoghan, he's a great actor. He's playing this like ultimate badass pilot who flies one of these flying fortresses. There's one of the episodes where he crash lands in like Norway, I want to say, and it's amazing. He like barely makes it. He like crashes over this like cliff and like barely makes it, and he smashes into a house, and the people there are like, I'll take you and like, you know, get you back to England and stuff like that. So, you know, and then in the next mission, like in the Munster mission, episode 3 is the best episode by a long way. It's the only good episode, basically. Like, it's a lot like Memphis Belle for a start, so automatically it's going to be amazing. It follows this guy called Rosie, who is played by a gentleman by the name of Nate Mann. And I think he's a good actor. I think it's a great character. In the documentary, they show that he had a very interesting life. He had a very interesting, like, pre-war, post-war, during the war life. He joined up because he was a Jew, and he felt like there was all this anti-Semitic stuff going on in Europe, and how is he gonna react to that living in America? So he joins up, like, becomes a pilot, goes off, and like flies 25 missions. You've got to fly 25 missions. That's one of the things in Memphis Belle. They're flying the 25th mission. If you do that, you get to go home. You get to go on a ticker tape parade. You get to, like, you know, sell war bonds to people. You're a hero, okay? You save the day, you're a hero. You flew 25 missions, brilliant. He flies 25 missions. The commanding officer says, you can go home now, mate. Like, you've done your job. And he's like, I've not done my job because there are still fascist, anti-Semitic people, like, killing Jews, and I need to keep fighting the war. So he keeps fighting the war. He keeps flying missions. It's an amazing story. Like, the whole focus of the series should have been Rosie. Like, that should have been the main focus, just following through the war, all his missions, all the cool stuff he did. But no, they decide to follow Callum Turner, who is a weird-looking little guy. He's a pretty good actor, but he's got very small eyes. He's got Howard Moon-level small eyes. He plays a character called Bucky, right? Remember that, Bucky. Austin Butler, who is famous for portraying Elvis, and basically is Elvis at this point, portrays a character called Buck. So the two main characters in this program are called Bucky and Buck, right? And they look different. Like, Austin Butler is Elvis, and Callum Turner is Small Eyes. He's Howard Moon. So you've got these two guys. They think they're so cool. Like, when you watch a documentary, they thought they were cool. They thought they were the best pilots ever. They thought they were gonna, like, you know, fly all the missions, and they were never gonna get shot down. They were just gonna be the best. They thought they were the best. They were not the best. One of the things this series does not portray as well is the Germans had way better pilots for the most part. Their pilots, along with all their armed forces, had been preparing for the Second World War for longer than anyone. They started the Second World War. So they were building up for the whole time, training pilots, training soldiers, training sailors. Like, everyone in the German Army, Air Force, Navy, all the rest of it were incredibly good. That's why they did so well for so long. Like, everyone that they were fighting against had to catch up to them. You know what I mean? So, like, when you're going to call the series Masters of the Air, it's a massively misleading title, because what that refers to is actually later in the war, 1945, they were the Masters of the Air. The Allied Air Force, all the Air Forces that the Allies had mastery of the air. The German Air Force had been wiped out by that point. So they just flew uncontested. Like, the only thing they had to worry about was flak, and that's, you know, a bit concerning, but whatever. So and that's the only way that we could have done D-Day. That's the only way the Allies could have done D-Day, was to have mastery of the air. So that's like why there was the Battle of Britain. That's why the Battle of Britain happened, because the Germans were trying to get mastery of the air over Britain, right? Because they wanted to invade. The Germans wanted to invade Britain so that it could come under their dominion. You know what I mean? So when the Battle of Britain happened and when Britain won, that meant that the Germans couldn't have air superiority. So they had to rethink things. They had to think of what they were going to do instead. So Masters of the Air is like a misleading title. I thought of some better titles. Air Massacre would have been a good one. Turkey Shoot would have been a good one, because it is just one massive turkey shoot for the Germans. Almost Certain Death is a good one. POWs and pubs, because the amount of time they spent concentrating on the POWs and pubs is outrageous. Like, it should have just been called that. So it is mad. Like, in Band of Brothers, they do show some stuff in England. They show, obviously, like, them training in England for a start. They show some interactions with the locals. Like, there's this old dude on a bike, and he comes across, Winters and some other guys, and he's like, oh, what's going on here then? And it's like, oh, that's like nice. It's like quaint. It shows England as being quaint. What Masters of the Air does is it's just massively offensive to the British. Like, the only interactions that happen are the American, airmen womanizing some of the women, I guess. But there's only one real interaction with the British airmen, and it's in a pub. There's loads of scenes in a pub, and the Americans are saying, like, we're flying missions during the day. The British are flying their missions during the night. Like, it's kind of a messed up situation. Like, why can't you fly missions during the day as well? And the British guys are like, well, you're stupid for doing that, basically. Like, it's a dumb thing to do because you're obviously going to get shot down all the time. Like, flying during the night is way safer because it's harder to see the bombers at night. But it's also harder to see the targets at night. So the British bombing wasn't very effective. I mean, there's a question whether how effective the American bombing was, because I think they missed a lot of the time. But during the day, at least, you have a better chance of bombing your targets. So, yeah. You got Bucky, you got Buck, and then you got Anthony Boyle, who is the most, like, melty face actor you've ever seen. Like, he's got real, like, like, everything's just smushed down. It's like, ooh. And he plays a guy called Croz, he's shown as being, like, a rubbish navigator. That's one of his main things. Like, the missions that he flies, because very early on, he's sort of promoted to go into the kind of head office bit where they're, like, orchestrating everything, into fight, like, bomber command, I guess you'd say. And so he's in there, like, planning missions instead of flying missions for a lot of the series. But early on, when he's flying missions, when he's actually, like, being a navigator, it feels like he messes up a lot. Like, I think if you like Google the actual real person, it would probably show that he was, like, really good and he probably did a great job in his role. But just from the actual from what is shown in the series, he's shown as being rubbish. So that's one thing. He's also cheating on his wife. Like, his wife is at home in America, and they have so many scenes of him with this British woman that he meets when he goes to this rehabilitation, like, recuperation place. One of the main things they show in the documentary is that the American airmen suffered, I guess, basically like PTSD. They were getting really, like, mentally messed up by seeing all of their comrades getting shot down. So the best, cure for this, and it did work for a lot of people, was to go to recuperation places. I think they go to, like, Oxford, this, like, nice country mansion in, like, Oxford, to recuperate. And during Croz's time at one of this recuperation place, he meets this English girl, and they start having an affair. And it's like, why are you doing this? Because we know he's got a wife back home, At one point, he gets leave to go back home. He goes back to America and gets his wife pregnant. And that is shown as being like a nice moment. Like we're supposed to feel like joy at him getting his wife pregnant after he's just been cheating on his wife for a big proportion of his time in during the war. She thinks he's flying and risking his life and, you know, being a hero, which he is to an extent, but he's also cheating on his wife. Like, that is so messed up, and we're supposed to feel some like good stuff about this guy. I wasn't impressed. It's pretty mad. So you've got Bucky, Buck, Croz, Rosie, and you've got Barry Keoghan, one of the best actors on the planet, gets killed super early. One of the other problems is front and center on all of the thumbnails, on all of the promotional material for Masters of the Air is the black actors. Like, there are, I think it's like, I'm sure there's all three of them. There's basically 3 black actors in this program, and I'm pretty sure all 3 of them are on the front cover, on like the thumbnail, on like all the promotional stuff for this series. And they're barely in it. They are barely in it. It's mad that they are in so much promotional stuff. Like, Ncuti Gatwa is like the main guy. Like, he's like the most famous guy. I haven't seen the other 2 guys in anything else. He's a great actor. When I saw him in the promotional stuff, I thought, awesome. It's going to show the Red Tails. It's going to show how amazing they were. One of the main things, like, there's a whole film about the Red Tails. It's called Red Tails. It's awesome. Like, they were some of the best fighter pilots during the Second World War. They were legit, like, awesome. And they don't show that in the series at all. I assumed there would be at least one episode where it would show them being amazing fighter pilots. They don't show it once. It's mad. Like, they show them flying, and they do this mission where they're like trying to shoot these like ground defense things, and they do it, and then they get shot down and captured and taken as POWs. So a big part of this whole Masters of the Air thing, why it should be called POWs in pubs, is because a huge proportion of it is POWs. Like, Bucky gets shot down, Buck gets shot down, they're taken as POWs. Ncuti Gatwa and the other 2 black guys get taken as POWs. And it's like, I do like POW stuff, but the funny thing is, they're in a Stalag, not a Stalag, in a whatever POW camp that is next to the one where the Great Escape happened, where, like, I don't know, 150 British airmen escaped, and like most of them were recaptured and like 50 of them were shot. So you've got the Great Escape happening next door. Meanwhile, Bucky and Buck and, you know, Ncuti Gatwa and stuff are in this POW camp, like, doing stuff. But is it interesting? Like, I don't think so. So it's a weird decision to call something Masters of the Air and then have a big proportion of it as, here's the POW camp. And it's not good. Like, at least in The Great Escape, it's cool. Like, there's loads of cool stuff happening. They're like digging a hole out of the camp, they escape, and it's like, it's amazing. In this, they're POWs. One of the things in the documentary is so much better than the show. It's unreal. Like, one of the things in the documentary is they say our daily life in the POW camp was very regimented. Like, they kept them busy every day, so they didn't get like restless and like have time to be doing stuff to escape. So they don't show that. There's no like montage of them in a POW camp, like doing their daily routine. Like, I don't even know what they did all day. Like, all that happens is Bucky and Buck talk to each other, and it is super boring. It's like, what's your favorite baseball team? I wonder how the like Yankees are doing, whatever. Like, who cares? It is so boring. And like, towards the end of the series, they're like marched to various camps, like further and further back as the Allies are, getting closer and closer. And that is like cool, like seeing them get force marched, to further and further in. But there's loads of stuff that didn't happen. Like, one of the things, like Small Eyes, Howard Moon gets when he gets shot down, he tries to like evade capture, And at one point, he almost does. You feel like he's gonna evade capture, but he is eventually captured. And then he's put on a train, and then as they're going along in the train, a big chunk of the track has been blown up. So they have to get out and they have to walk, right? And they walk up to this German town that's been absolutely bombed to oblivion. And the locals see the American airmen, and they're like, these are the guys that bombed us. These are the guys that are responsible for all this death and destruction. So let's get them. So they get them. They basically lynch them, and the German soldiers who are in charge of these POWs are just like, whatever. Like, you just do whatever. We don't care. We'll just watch you lynching them. This is fine. So this is the Russelsheim massacre. Like, you can Google it easily. I wasn't aware of this. I thought this is totally made up. It's not totally made up. It actually happened, but it's a completely different unit. It's like some B-24 pilots got a B-24 crew, not a B-17, a B-24 crew got shot down behind enemy lines, and they were massacred. There was like loads of them were killed. I think one or two of them made it off. But in Masters of the Air, it shows Howard Moon escaping, because he's basically like, they're all smashed up, they're all beaten up really badly. He gets knocked out, and he's like piled up onto all these bodies and put in a cart and taken off to be buried in, you know, the woods or whatever. And the two guys go off to like dig a big hole to like chuck all the bodies in. And he wakes up during that, and so he sees what's happening, and he runs away and gets recaptured by some German soldiers and taken to a POW camp. So like, that didn't happen. That didn't happen to Bucky. Like, it never happened to him. It happened to a different character. Why are you doing that? In Band of Brothers, there are some historical inaccuracies, but basically everything that happens in the show happened in real life. So it's kind of weird you're gonna have stuff that didn't really happen being portrayed in this series. There is an episode that should be called D-Day. I don't know why it's not called D-Day. I think it's episode 8, whatever. And it is Croz, Old Melted Face. It follows him a lot. And it's like, D-Day is one of the coolest things that's ever happened. It's one of the most action-packed days of all time. There's like many books written about it. It's amazing. It's just, how are you going to not make that cool? In this episode, they follow Melted Face to he has to stay awake for 72 hours, right? That's his thing. He like narrates his episode, and he's like, I'd stay awake for 72 hours. It's like, right, yeah, that's quite difficult. And he had to draw maps for the whole time. He had to draw mission maps for the whole time, because they were just non-stop bombing the German coast leading up to D-Day. So that D-Day guys, the people landing on the beaches, could get on there as easily as possible. So they just follow him around drawing maps, and I was like, I would love to see like a supercut of Croz drawing his super boring maps next to like Winters and all the 101st Airborne Division landing for D-Day, and like going through all the hell they went through. And it's just like, I don't know why you've done this. Like, why wouldn't you at least have it be a montage of Croz doing maps, and then like for a bit, and then have like the actual missions being flown, and it's like, oh, this is awesome, like just bombing like loads of key targets, getting ready for D-Day. And he falls asleep after his 72-hour shift, and he doesn't wake up for like 3 days or whatever, so he misses D-Day entirely. He misses the actual D-Day thing entirely. He's like, oh, gutted, I missed that. It's so weird. It's like the weirdest paced thing of all time. So there's like some cool French resistance stuff. Like, obviously a lot of the guys get shot down behind enemy lines, and they get French resistance guys helping them escape. So it's like LOLO, where you've got American airmen like hiding in beds, hiding in wardrobes, hiding in various places to hide from the Gestapo, or just the Germans in general. And I didn't realize this, but if you're shot down behind enemy lines and you are smuggled back to England by the French resistance, then you automatically go home. You're automatically out of the war, because if you then go back into an airplane and you're shot down again, then you know all the French resistance stuff. You'll know some faces, you'll know some names, you'll know, like, you have some intelligence that the Germans can get out of you, and we can't have that. Like, the French resistance was a very important thing, and they had to be protected. So yeah, I think the whole thing is a complete letdown. I don't know how it got made as it is. Like, it just seems like a completely squandered thing that had like massive potential, and they totally ballsed it up beyond imagining. So I would say just watch Memphis Belle. Memphis Belle is such a good film. It perfectly captures the kind of feeling of being in a flying fortress during World War II, and it's just like, it's the weirdest thing ever. It's the weirdest thing ever. They could have had like one scene where like there's a guy in one of the flying fortresses, and it's like POV, and he goes from one end of the plane to the other, and he sees like all mad stuff happening around him, like bullets coming through the airplane, like people getting shot, people getting like flak shrapnel in their faces, like all sorts of stuff happening. There's none of that. It's just not interesting. It's not well done at all. It just feels like a total. There's no like montages. There's no like one of the coolest jobs I feel like for the B-17s was being a bombardier, right? You've got to like figure out where to actually drop the bombs, and you have to like figure it out from a map, and like you have to see if what you're over is the correct thing to drop the bombs on. And I guess it would have been very difficult, but they don't show like a POV of a bombardier like looking through his reticle and seeing like, oh, is that the right place? Is that the right place? Like, is that a school? Is it a church? Like, they didn't do any of that. I just feel like they should have sat down early on and like said, what cool stuff can we have in it? And none of that. It's madness. So, not impressed. Anyway, I've gone on for a while. I just feel like it could have been amazing. It could have been like the best thing ever. And I mean, I've cancelled Apple TV anyway. This was the last thing that I was interested in seeing on there. So I've seen it all. I feel like it would have been better to have known how crap it was and to have turned off after episode 3. But we are where we are. At least I have a fully formed opinion about it. I mean, I've seen Band of Brothers like a million times, so I just feel like it's so incredible. Every episode is amazing. Every character is great. It just feels like so, you know, lush that, and then you're going to make this Masters of the Air thing, which is also to do with some real heroes that did some amazing stuff. And there's so many people that are deeply invested in this part of the war, and they're just totally ballsed it up. It's madness. Anyway, I'm going to go off now. You take care. Peace.